first time I realized someone could smile straight into your face while setting you on fire. It wasn't in a dark alley or some dramatic courtroom. It was under track lighting, beside a wall of bright, fragile paintings, with a glass of cheap white wine sweating in my hand. And the worst part was this. I'd been invited as a friend, but I was being positioned as the weapon. Welcome to Plot Twist Revolutions, where true stories don't just twist, they leave bruises. If you've ever had that one friend who swears they hate drama, but somehow drama follows them like perfume, stay with me, because this one starts in a grocery store aisle and ends with a room full of people deciding, in real time, who to believe. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of day that feels too ordinary to hold anything dangerous. I went into Oak Ridge Market for yogurt and granola, the responsible little routine I did when I wanted to pretend my life had structure. The place smelled like paper bags and citrus cleaner, and the speakers were playing something soft and acoustic, the kind of song that makes you move slower without realizing it. I was on aisle 8, pretending to compare cereal like I had all the time in the world, when I heard my name. Well, not my name. Claire's. I froze in that half-step way you do when you're not sure if you should keep walking or disappear into a shelf. At the end of the aisle, just past the display of organic granola bars, two voices leaned close together, urgent and sharp, like they were trying to keep the words from spilling out into the fluorescent air. Caitlin Baker was the first voice. Everyone knew Caitlin. She had that effortless social gravity, like she could pull a whole room into her orbit without even trying. She was always the loud laugh in the corner, the one who knew the bouncer, the bartender, the backstory of the couple arguing near the window. She wore charm like armor, and it worked. The other voice belonged to Valeria Carter. Val. She was restless energy in human form. She'd check her phone mid-conversation and still somehow manage to make you feel like you were the one losing focus. Val could be warm, funny, loyal, right up until she decided she wasn't. Then she'd go cold, like she'd never needed you at all. They didn't see me. I was tucked behind a tower of cereal boxes, holding a bright red box of Frosted Flakes, like it was the most fascinating thing I'd ever read. Seriously, Val, you have to trust me on this, Caitlin said. Her voice was low but strained, like she'd been carrying this thought around all day, and it had started to cut into her ribs. Valeria made a sound that was half laugh, half scoff. Why, though? It's just a stupid party. Just because it's at the new gallery doesn't mean anything. You know, Emily always goes overboard. Emily Rhodes, the unofficial mayor of our social circle. She planned events the way some people planned wars, strategically, obsessively, with guest lists and timing and angles. If there was a new place in town, Emily would be the first to host something there, claiming it as hers. Caitlin leaned in closer, because I saw the message, and it's not just a party. It's a setup. My stomach tightened, like my body knew before my brain did that this wasn't going to be a harmless conversation. A setup for what? Val asked, and for the first time, she sounded less bored and more alert. Caitlin hesitated, and I imagined her eyes darting around the aisle the way they always did when she was about to drop something juicy. Something about breaking Claire's trust. They want to make her look bad. The words landed like a dropped plate. Loud, sudden, impossible to ignore. Val snorted, but it came out sharper than before. Claire deserves to get hurt. I felt heat rush up my neck. Not anger exactly, more like disbelief. Claire. Hurt. Claire was the friend who remembered your birthday without Facebook. The friend who carried mints and band-aids and an extra phone charger. She could be intense about her art, sure. She could be sensitive, but fake, cruel, not Claire. 2 days earlier, Val and I had met for coffee, and she'd complained about Claire in that casual, dismissive way she used when she wanted to feel above someone. She only pretends to be nice for attention, Val had said, stirring her drink like she was stirring the accusation right into the foam. I'd shrugged then. I hadn't defended Claire the way I should have. I'd told myself it wasn't worth getting pulled into it. That Val was just venting. That people said things. Now, hearing it again in the cereal aisle, it didn't feel like venting. It sounded like permission. Caitlin's voice rose slightly, impatience creeping in. Come on, Val. You have to help me figure this out. If Claire's going to be there, someone has to warn her. Warn her. The word jolted me. Warn her. Or warn someone else. Valeria sighed. Or maybe Claire just needs to learn. I'm tired of her acting like she's the main character. Caitlin didn't answer right away. Then she said, it's bigger than that. And just like that, they turned the corner into the next aisle, their voices fading into the hum of the store. I stood there with the cereal box pressed against my chest like a shield, my mouth dry, my pulse too fast for a Tuesday afternoon. I should have walked after them. I should have called Claire right then, but my brain did that irritating thing where it tries to make everything reasonable. It's probably nothing. It's just Caitlin exaggerating. It's just Val being mean. It's just Emily planning something tacky. Except the way Caitlin said setup hadn't sounded like exaggeration. It sounded like she was scared. I paid for my groceries and left with my bag cutting into my fingers, the winter air outside sharp enough to sting. In the car, I sat with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at the rows of other cars, like one of them might have answers. Claire's solo show was in 2 days. 2 days. She'd been talking about it for months. Her first real solo exhibit at the new gallery downtown. White walls, polished concrete floors. The kind of space that made even a bad painting look expensive. She'd poured everything into it. Late nights, skipped dinners, fingertips stained with pigment. That rare, glowing kind of hope people get when something finally feels like it might work out, and someone wanted to make her look bad. That night, my apartment felt too quiet. The grocery bags sat on my counter untouched, while I paced between the sink and the window. Every time my phone lit up, my heart jumped. Valeria finally texted around 9. Hey, are you excited for the gallery? You're going, right? I stared at the message until the words blurred. The audacity of it made me want to laugh. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to type. I heard you in the cereal aisle. I wanted to type. What are you planning? I wanted to type. Don't you dare. Instead, I went with the safe version of myself. Yeah, should be fun. Maybe you should tag along. Her reply came quick. Maybe. Just don't get set up for anything. You know how people love stirring trouble. The irony hit so hard I, actually, let out a single sharp laugh in my empty kitchen. It sounded wrong in the quiet, like something breaking. I told myself Val was warning me because she cared, or because she wanted to feel like the smartest person in the room, or because she was playing both sides. I didn't know, but I did know I wasn't sleeping. The next day at work, my computer screen might as well have been blank. I answered emails on autopilot. I listened to coworkers talk about lunch plans and deadlines and weekend trips, while my mind kept circling back to Kaitlyn's voice. It's a setup. By late afternoon, I made a decision that felt small but heavy. I wasn't going to say anything to Claire. Not yet. I hate admitting that, even now, but I didn't want to ruin her excitement with a rumor. I didn't want to be the paranoid friend. I didn't want to throw accusations at Val and Kaitlyn without proof. And deep down, some part of me believed that if I just showed up, kept an eye out, stayed close to Claire, I could stop whatever it was before it happened. That's what I told myself. The night of the show arrived with a cold, clear sky, and that particular downtown energy where everything feels brighter and louder than it is. The gallery sat between a boutique furniture store and a restaurant that smelled like garlic and money. Outside, people clustered in coats, laughing too loudly, smoking like it was stylish again. Through the glass windows, I could see light spilling onto the sidewalk, silhouettes moving like a living painting. Inside, the air was warm and smelled like wine, perfume, and fresh paint. The walls were lined with Claire's work, bold color, sharp shapes, pieces that looked like they were trying to say something without being polite about it. It was her, all of her, the part that cared too much, the part that didn't know how to be halfway. When she saw me, her face lit up so fast it made my chest ache. "There you are," she said, and she pulled me into a hug like she'd been holding her breath until I walked through the door. I was worried no one would come. I held her a second longer than usual, feeling the tremble in her arms. "I wouldn't miss this for the world. You've worked so hard." Her eyes were glassy, but she smiled anyway. "Okay, don't make me cry before the speech." She looked incredible, simple black dress, hair pinned back in a way that showed her neck, her collarbones. There was paint under one fingernail, like a secret. She had that soft shine of someone on the edge of something big. I wanted the night to stay like that. a clean start, a room full of people seeing her. I took a glass of wine from the table near the entrance and drifted through the crowd. People were talking in that gallery tone, slower, careful, like they were afraid of sounding uneducated in front of art. I nodded along when someone said Claire's work felt raw. I smiled when someone else said it was brave. Then I saw Caitlin. She entered like she owned the air. Long coat, glossy hair, a bright lipstick that looked too perfect for winter. She scanned the room, and her gaze flicked over me like I was furniture. No wave, no smile, just that quick dismissal. My stomach tightened again. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, but it did. Caitlin was friendly with everyone when she wanted to be. Ignoring me was a choice. As I turned, I spotted Valeria near the back wall, leaning toward a man I barely recognized. Parker, mutual acquaintance. One of those people who always seemed to be around. Never too close, never too far, like he existed in the blurry edges of everyone's social circle. Val's hand was up near her mouth as she talked, a gesture I'd seen her do when she wanted to keep something private. Parker's posture was stiff, his jaw set like he was forcing himself to listen. I took a sip of wine that suddenly tasted sour and walked toward them. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Everything okay?" They both snapped their attention to me too fast. Parker cleared his throat. "Yeah, just discussing the event." Valeria didn't smile. She didn't even pretend. Her eyes slid away from mine, like she didn't want to get caught holding them. "Right," I said, and my voice came out thinner than I wanted. "Cool." Val stepped back. "I'm going to find Emily." "Hey, wait." I started, but she was already moving through the crowd, slipping between bodies like she was practiced at disappearing. Parker lingered for a second. Then he leaned closer to me, his voice low. "You look like you don't know." "Know what?" I asked, but he flinched like he'd said too much. He shook his head once. "Never mind." And then he walked away too. I stood there, feeling like someone had opened a door beneath my feet. The wine in my glass was still mostly full, but my hand was sweating around it. The room felt louder, the laughter sharper. Somewhere near the front, Claire was talking with a couple in expensive coats, her hands moving as she explained something about the piece behind them. She looked so alive. I watched her and tried to steady myself. Whatever was happening, I couldn't let it touch her. Not tonight. I went to find Emily, thinking maybe if I could get ahead of it, if I could pull someone aside, ask questions, interrupt the setup. Maybe I could stop it before it landed. But Emily was surrounded by people, glowing in the center like a chandelier. She was laughing, touching someone's arm, holding court. When I got close, she glanced at me briefly with that polite, distracted smile. "Hey, you made it," she said, already turning back to the person beside her. "Yeah," I said. "Listen, can I talk to you for a second?" Emily's eyes flickered, assessing. "Sure, babe, but make it quick. Claire's about to do her little speech." little speech. The phrase made my skin crawl. I leaned in. I heard there might be some drama tonight, like something planned. Emily's smile didn't drop, but it tightened, like a ribbon pulled too hard. Drama at an art show. Shocking. I'm serious, I pressed. Do you know anything about it? Emily's nails tapped lightly against her wine glass. People love stirring things. Just keep an eye on your friend. My friend. Not Claire. Not her name. Just your friend. Before I could push harder, someone called Emily's name, and she drifted away like she'd never been pinned down at all. I tried to breathe. I tried to focus on the art, on the faces, on anything that wasn't the tight coil of dread in my stomach. At some point, I excused myself toward the back hall, where the restroom sign pointed. The hallway was quieter, lit dimmer. The noise of the crowd muffled like a heartbeat behind a wall. I washed my hands, even though they weren't dirty, just to have something to do. My reflection looked pale under the fluorescent bathroom light. My eyes were too wide. I looked like someone waiting for bad news. When I stepped back into the hallway, Caitlin was there, leaning against the wall like she'd been waiting. Hey, she said, her voice light, almost sweet. I didn't return the sweetness. What's going on? Caitlin tilted her head. What do you mean? You've been ignoring me all night, I said. Val's acting weird. Parker's acting weird. You were literally talking about a setup 2 days ago. That got her attention. Her eyes sharpened, the playful mask shifting slightly. You were eavesdropping. I was buying cereal, I snapped, and the anger surprised me with how quickly it rose. So tell me, what's the setup? Caitlin smiled, but it wasn't warmth. It was calculation. Nothing you need to worry about. That line, airy, dismissive, felt like a hand pushing my face away. Yes, I do, I said, stepping closer. Because Claire is my friend. Caitlin's gaze flicked toward the gallery entrance, like she was checking who might be listening. Then she leaned in just enough for her perfume to hit me. Something expensive and sharp. Here's some advice, she murmured. Stop playing hero. Before I could respond, she slipped past me and disappeared into the crowd. I stood there for a second, my pulse thudding in my throat. Stop playing hero. As if caring about your friend was a performance. I walked back into the main room, feeling like the air was heavier. The crowd had shifted closer to the front, forming a loose semicircle around a small, open space. Claire stood near a microphone, her hands clasped together, like she was holding herself steady. Her eyes met mine, and she smiled, small, nervous, grateful. She took a breath and began to speak. Thank you all for coming, she said, her voice trembling at first, then smoothing out as she went. This is my first solo show, and I've been working toward this for a long time. People murmured politely. Someone clinked a glass. Claire's cheeks flushed, but she kept going, talking about how she'd started painting to survive a hard year, how creating something had made her feel less alone. Her voice wasn't dramatic, it was honest, and in that room, full of shiny people and curated outfits. Her honesty felt like the only real thing. I watched her, and for a moment, I forgot my fear. I felt proud. I felt protective. I felt like maybe the night would hold. Then I heard laughter. Not the soft kind, not the polite kind, the kind that slices. It started behind me, near the back, and it spread like a ripple through a small group. I turned and saw Kaitlin, hand over her mouth, eyes bright. A couple of people leaned in, grinning. Someone glanced toward Claire, and then away, smirking. Claire's voice faltered for half a beat, but she didn't stop. She kept talking, even as her eyes flicked toward the sound. I moved toward the cluster, without thinking. My wine glass was gone. I must have set it down somewhere. My hands were empty and tight at my sides. As I got closer, I heard snippets. "It's just so intense," someone whispered. "She really thinks she's profound," someone else said. Kaitlin laughed again, louder this time. I'm sorry, but the way she said survive, like she's been through a war." A couple people chuckled, eager to be included. I stepped into the circle like a sudden shadow. "What are you doing?" Kaitlin's smile widened, as if I'd given her exactly what she wanted. "Relax, it's just a joke. Not when it's at Claire's expense," I said, my voice sharper than I expected in the gallery space. A woman beside Kaitlin, someone I didn't know well, maybe a friend of Emily's, shifted uncomfortably. "Kaitlin, stop," she said quietly. "It's mean." Kaitlin's eyes flashed. "Mean, please. It's an art show. People critique art." "That's not critique," I said. "That's humiliation." Kaitlin's posture straightened, like she was bracing for a fight. "You always do this," she said, voice rising. "You act like Claire's guardian angel. What's wrong with defending my friend?" I shot back, and then the room seemed to go quiet in that strange way crowds do when they sense conflict. The laughter died. Heads turned. People pretended not to listen while leaning closer. Claire's voice drifted to a stop at the microphone. The sudden silence was like a snapped string. Claire looked at us, confusion on her face. "What's happening?" Kaitlin turned slightly, as if she'd been waiting for Claire to speak. "Nothing," she said sweetly. "We're just reacting." "Reacting to what?" Claire asked, stepping down from the microphone. Her hands were trembling now, and she tried to hide it by clasping them tighter. My throat tightened. This was the moment. If I didn't say something, the setup would go off without resistance. 2 days ago, I blurted, before I could talk myself out of it. I overheard Kaitlin in the grocery store. She said there was a setup. That people wanted to break your trust and make you look bad. The words hung in the air, louder than they should have been. The crowd's attention snapped fully onto us now. No more pretending. Kaitlin's face changed. For the first time, the smirk slipped. Her eyes widened just slightly, like she hadn't expected me to have receipts. "You're lying," she said, but the confidence in her voice was thin. Valeria appeared at the edge of the group, as if she'd been pulled in by gravity. Her expression was tight, jaw clenched. Emily was behind her, eyes narrowed like she was annoyed at the disruption rather than alarmed by what it meant. Claire stared at Caitlin, then at Val, then at me. A setup, Claire repeated, like she needed to say it out loud to understand it. I nodded once. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to ruin tonight for you, but something's been off all evening. Val's whispering, Parker's whispering, Caitlin's making jokes. It's not random. Caitlin laughed again, but it sounded brittle. This is insane. You're making a scene. A scene. Claire's voice cracked. This is my show. Caitlin held up her hands in mock surrender. Okay, fine. You want the truth. People are tired of you. People are tired of how you act like everyone owes you applause because you're sensitive. Claire flinched like she'd been slapped. The room went so still I could hear someone's glass clink against their teeth. Valeria stepped forward suddenly. Caitlin, stop, she said, but her voice wasn't gentle. It was sharp with panic. That was the first real crack. I looked at Val. What did you help her do? Val's eyes darted to Emily, then to Caitlin. I didn't, she started, but the lie didn't have anywhere to land. Caitlin's gaze snapped to Val. Don't, she warned, her voice low. And right then, I understood. Whatever it was, Valeria was the weak link. Caitlin had pulled her in. And now Val was realizing she might be standing in front of a moving train. Claire took a step closer to Val, her voice quieter but more dangerous. Val, she said, and her eyes shone like wet glass. What did you do? Valeria swallowed. Her throat bobbed. It wasn't supposed to go like this. My chest went cold. Claire's lips parted. Go like what? Valeria's gaze flicked around the crowd, taking in the faces. People were watching openly now. Nobody was smiling. Even Emily looked uneasy, like she'd lost control of her own party. Valeria's voice came out in a rush. There were messages, screenshots. Caitlin said she had proof you were talking about people behind their backs. Claire shook her head fast. What? No. Caitlin cut in, trying to regain control. Val, shut up. But Val kept going, like once the truth started spilling, it couldn't be stopped. Caitlin said, she said, if we showed them at the right moment, people would finally see you for what you are, Valeria said, and her eyes filled with something that looked like shame. She said you manipulate everyone with that sweet voice and those sad stories. Claire stared at her like she didn't recognize her. I felt my hands curl into fists. What screenshots? I demanded. Screenshots of what, Val? Valeria looked at me helplessly. I don't know if they're real, she admitted. Caitlin showed them to me on her phone. She said they were from a group chat. She said Claire was laughing about everyone. A murmur ran through the crowd, uneasy, hungry. Claire turned back to Caitlin, her voice suddenly steady. Show me. Caitlin's eyes narrowed. Why should I? Because you're ruining my show, Claire said, and her voice didn't shake anymore. Because you're making claims about me in front of my work. in front of people who came here to see me. Show me. Caitlin's smile returned, slow and deliberate. Fine. She reached into her clutch and pulled out her phone with the calm of someone who thought she was about to win. Claire held out her hand. Give it to me. Caitlin paused, just a fraction, but it was enough to show fear. No, Caitlin said, still smiling. I'll show you. She tapped her screen, scrolling with manicured nails. She angled the phone toward Claire, but not enough for anyone else to see clearly. It was a power move, a private humiliation. Claire leaned in, eyes scanning. Then her face changed, not into guilt, into confusion, then anger. This, Claire said slowly, this isn't me. Caitlin's eyes flickered. It's literally your name. Claire lifted her chin. My name isn't unique. Caitlin scoffed. Oh, come on. Claire's hands shook as she reached out, faster than Caitlin expected, and grabbed the phone. Caitlin jerked, startled. Hey. Claire held it up, turning it so I could see, so the people nearest could see. It was a screenshot of a conversation. The name at the top said Claire W. The messages were cruel, mocking, dripping with contempt. They talked about Val being desperate, about Emily being pathetic, about me being clingy. It was ugly. But what caught my eye wasn't the words. It was the details, the small things people don't think about when they fake something. The timestamps were off. The font looked slightly different, and there was a tiny icon at the top I recognized from a messaging app Claire didn't even use. Claire's voice cut through the silence. This is not my account, she said, louder now. I don't use this app. I never have. Ask anyone who actually knows me. Valeria's face drained of color. Caitlin, what is that? Caitlin's expression hardened. It's proof. No, I said, stepping closer, my voice cold. It's manufactured. The word seemed to hit the crowd like a spark. Emily's eyes narrowed. Caitlin, she said, and her tone finally carried warning. Is this fake? Caitlin's jaw clenched. Are you kidding me? You're taking her side. Claire's eyes were bright with tears, but she didn't let them fall. You planned this, she said. You wanted to turn people against me. For what? Caitlin laughed once, sharp. For what? Because you act like you're better than everyone. Because you walk around like some wounded artist, and everyone has to cater to your feelings. That's not an answer, Claire said. Caitlin's eyes darted, searching for a new angle. Fine, you want an answer. You get everything. You get attention. You get sympathy. You get opportunities. This gallery, do you think you earned it? Emily helped you. People helped you. And you stand here acting like it's all you. Emily stiffened, offended. Excuse me. Caitlin plowed on, emboldened by her own bitterness. And you, she snapped, pointing at me now. You're always hovering around her like she's some saint. It's nauseating. The room seemed to recoil. Even people who didn't like conflict looked uncomfortable now. This wasn't critique. This was envy with teeth. I looked at Caitlin, So you forged screenshots, I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. You tried to sabotage her in front of everyone, and you dragged Valeria into it. Valeria flinched at her name. Tears finally filled her eyes, but she blinked them back like she didn't deserve to cry. Caitlin's face twisted. I didn't forge anything. Claire held the phone higher. Then let's do this, she said, and her voice was calm in a way that scared me. Open the account right now, log in, show everyone it's mine. Caitlin hesitated, just enough. That hesitation was the loudest thing in the room. Parker, who had been lingering near the back, stepped forward suddenly. His face was pale, his eyes fixed on the phone in Claire's hand. Parker started, then stopped, like the words hurt to push out. He swallowed. I saw Caitlin working on something last week. Every head turned. Caitlin's eyes snapped to him. Parker, don't. Parker's hands were shaking. She asked me how to make a screenshot look real, he said, voice cracking. She said it was for a prank. I thought it was. I don't know. I didn't think it was this. A collective inhale swept the room. Caitlin's mask finally fractured. Are you serious? She hissed at him. You're going to do this to me. Parker's face tightened, guilt and fear fighting. You did it to yourself. Claire stared at Caitlin with a kind of disbelief that was almost grief. You tried to destroy me, she said softly. At my show. Caitlin's eyes flashed, desperate now. Oh, please, destroy you. You're standing there with everyone feeling sorry for you. You love this. That line, so cruel, so personal, made something in Claire shift. Claire handed the phone to Emily. You hosted this, she said, voice firm. You tell me, is this what you wanted in your gallery? Emily looked stunned, holding the phone, like it had become radioactive. She scrolled, her brows drawing together. Then she looked up at Caitlin, and her face hardened. This is disgusting, Emily said. Caitlin's mouth fell open slightly. Emily. No, Emily cut in. Don't say my name like I'm supposed to save you. You brought this into my event. I didn't love Emily, but in that moment, I watched her choose the room, choose her reputation, choose basic decency, and it mattered. Claire's voice rose, not loud, but clear. If anyone here believes this is me, ask me right now. Ask me anything. I'll hand over my phone. I'll show you my apps. I'll show you my messages. I have nothing to hide. The crowd shifted again. People looked at each other. Some looked ashamed, like they'd enjoyed the idea of Claire being exposed more than they wanted to admit. Valeria stepped forward suddenly, her voice trembling. I'm sorry, she said to Claire, and she sounded like she meant it in a way I'd never heard from her before. I was angry at you for stupid reasons. And when Caitlin showed me those screenshots, I wanted to believe them. I wanted to feel justified. Claire's eyes softened for a second, then tightened again. You wanted me to be awful, so you could hate me without guilt. Valeria flinched. Yes, she whispered. Caitlin made a choking sound. So you're all just going to turn on me? No one answered at first. The silence was the answer. Caitlin's gaze swept the room, searching for support, for laughter, for someone to step in and turn this into a joke again. But the air had changed. The light felt colder. The party had become a reckoning. Claire's shoulders lifted with a deep breath. "Leave," she said. Caitlin scoffed, but her eyes were glossy now, fury and humiliation mixing. "You don't get to kick me out." Emily stepped closer, her voice sharp. "Actually, she does. And so do I. Get out." Caitlin stared at Emily like she'd been betrayed. "Wow, okay." She turned to me then, and for a second, something raw flashed across her face. Hurt, maybe, or something like it. Then it twisted back into disdain. "You're happy," she said to me, voice low. "You love playing the good person." I didn't answer, because nothing I could say would land. People like Caitlin didn't hear words, they heard threats. Caitlin lifted her chin, straightened her coat, and walked through the crowd toward the door. No one stopped her. No one spoke. The sound of her boots against the concrete floor echoed like punctuation. When the glass door shut behind her, the room exhaled. Claire's hands trembled. The adrenaline that had held her upright started to fade, and I saw the exhaustion underneath. I moved toward her, instinctive. "I'm so sorry," I said softly. Claire looked at me, and her eyes finally spilled tears, but she didn't collapse. She wiped them quickly, as if refusing to give Caitlin the satisfaction of a full breakdown. "Don't be sorry," she whispered. "You stood up. You said something. That matters." Valeria hovered nearby, not sure if she was allowed to exist in the same space. "Claire," Valeria said, voice small. "I really am sorry." Claire held Valeria's gaze, and the hurt there was quiet and deep. "I believe you're sorry," Claire said, "but I don't trust you right now." Valeria nodded, swallowing hard. "Okay." The honesty of that exchange made the room feel less poisonous, like at least the truth was finally out in the open, even if it hurt. Emily cleared her throat, stepping in awkwardly. "Claire," she said, "do you want to take a break?" "We can, I don't know, reset the room." Claire looked around at the crowd, some people staring, some avoiding her eyes, some looking genuinely concerned. Claire lifted her chin. "No," she said, "I'm not taking a break." Her voice was steady now, not because she wasn't hurt, but because she decided she wasn't going to be moved. She stepped back toward the microphone. The crowd parted without speaking, making room as if she were something fragile they didn't want to touch. Claire took the microphone in her hand and looked at everyone. Her eyes were still wet, but her gaze was fierce. "I'm going to say this once," she said, voice carrying. "If you came here tonight because you care about art, because you care about community, because you care about supporting someone trying to build something, then stay. If you came here for gossip, or to watch someone get torn down, you can leave." No one moved. Claire's jaw tightened. "This show is about my work, not about fabricated messages, not about someone else's resentment." so I'm going to keep going. The room was silent. Then someone near the front began to clap. Slow at first, uncertain. Then another person joined, and another. The applause grew, spreading until it filled the gallery, loud and real and slightly desperate, like the crowd was trying to scrub itself clean. Claire didn't smile. She just nodded once, accepting it without gratitude, because she shouldn't have had to earn basic respect back. I stood off to the side, heart pounding, watching her reclaim the room inch by inch. After the applause died down, people began to drift again, this time quieter, more careful. Some approached Claire to offer support. Some avoided her entirely, slipping out with embarrassed faces. The party continued, but it had a different temperature now. Less glitter, more truth. Valeria came to stand beside me. Her eyes were red, her mascara slightly smeared. She looked smaller than usual, like the bravado had drained out. I guess I was wrong, she said, voice thin. About Claire, about you. I didn't soften. Not yet. You were ready to believe the worst, I said. Valeria swallowed. Because it was convenient. I nodded slowly. And because you wanted a story where you weren't the villain. She flinched, but she didn't argue. Yeah. We stood in silence for a moment, watching Claire talk to a couple near one of her larger pieces. She was still shaking slightly, but she was present. She was standing. Valeria's voice dropped. Kaitlyn showed me those screenshots and told me you were in on it. My head snapped toward her. What? Valeria glanced at me quickly, then away. She told me you were part of the plan, that you were going to act like you didn't know, then turn on Claire at the right moment. She said you were jealous of her. My stomach turned. That's insane. I know, Valeria said quietly, but in the moment, it made sense, because I was already irritated with Claire, and you've always been so close to her, and Kaitlyn made it sound like you were fake, like you were pretending to be supportive. I stared at the floor, the concrete suddenly feeling too hard under my feet. The setup wasn't just to hurt Claire. It was to isolate her, to make it look like even her closest friend was against her, to make the betrayal feel complete. And that meant Kaitlyn had been planning this from multiple angles, like a chess game with people as pieces. A cold realization slid through me. If I hadn't overheard them in that grocery store aisle, if I hadn't been watching, if I hadn't blurted it out, Claire might have walked away from that night, believing she'd been surrounded by liars, including me. I felt sick. I excused myself and stepped outside onto the sidewalk. The night air hit my face like a slap, cold and clean. My breath came out in a white cloud. Downtown traffic hissed along the wet street, and somewhere a couple laughed, unaware of anything happening inside that gallery. I leaned against the building and closed my eyes for a second, trying to steady the trembling in my hands. Behind the glass, I could still see Claire moving through the room, talking, nodding, holding herself together. She looked like someone walking with a bruise on her ribs, careful but determined. A few minutes later, The door opened, and Claire stepped out. She stood beside me, without speaking at first, her arms wrapped around herself. The streetlight caught the wet tracks on her cheeks. "Are you okay?" I asked. Claire let out a slow breath. "I don't know," she said honestly. I'm embarrassed. Not because of what she said, but because for a second, I wondered if people believed it. And that feeling, wondering if everyone secretly hates you, she swallowed. "It's awful." I nodded. "It is." Claire stared out at the street. "Why me?" she whispered. I didn't do anything to her. And that was the hardest part, because the truth was simple and ugly. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "people don't need you to do something wrong. They just need you to have something they want, or to remind them of something they hate in themselves." Claire's mouth tightened, and she nodded slightly, as if she already knew. She looked at me then, and her gaze was intense. "You heard them in the grocery store." "Yes," I admitted. "I should have told you sooner." Claire shook her head. "No," she said. "You came, you watched, you spoke up. If you hadn't—" Her voice broke. I stepped closer. "I'm here." Claire's shoulders sagged, just for a moment. "Thank you," she whispered. Inside the gallery, the noise rose again. Music, voices, clinking glasses. Life, insisting on continuing. Claire wiped her cheeks and straightened her posture. She looked at the door, then back at me. "I want to go back in," she said. "Not because I'm fine, but because she doesn't get to chase me out of my own night." The pride that swelled in my chest wasn't the shiny kind. It was heavy, earned. "Let's go," I said. We walked back inside together. The next week was quieter, but it wasn't peaceful. Caitlin didn't vanish from the social scene immediately. People like her rarely do. She posted vague, pointed things online, quotes about betrayal, about fake friends, about people who pretend to be kind. She texted a few mutuals privately, trying to control the story, trying to frame herself as the one who'd been attacked. But the room had seen too much. Parker told a couple people what he'd told us. Emily, furious about her event being tainted, made it clear to her circle that Caitlin was no longer welcome. And when Emily draws a line, people follow, not because they're brave, but because they want to stay in her good graces. Valeria tried to reach out to Claire more than once. She sent long messages, then shorter ones, apologies that sounded sincere, but also desperate to be forgiven quickly. Claire didn't respond right away. Instead, she poured herself back into her work. The gallery extended her show by a week because people kept coming. The story had spread, not the gossip version, but the version where an artist stood her ground and refused to be humiliated. I visited Claire at the gallery on a slow afternoon when the light came in slanted through the windows, and the room smelled faintly like fresh plaster. She stood in front of one of her pieces, arms crossed, studying it like it had secrets. "I've been thinking," she said when I walked up. "Dangerous," I teased gently, trying to bring some softness back into the air between us. She gave a small smile. I've been thinking about what you said, about people wanting you to be awful so they can hate you. I nodded. Yeah. Claire's eyes stayed on the painting. I think Caitlin wanted me to beg, she said quietly. She wanted me to cry in front of everyone. She wanted me to prove her point, that I'm fragile and needy and dramatic. I swallowed. But you didn't. Claire looked at me then, and there was something steadier in her face. No, and that's what made her furious. We stood in silence, the kind that feels like recovery. A few days later, Valeria asked to meet me, not at a cafe this time, not somewhere public and easy. She asked if we could walk by the river. It was cold wind cutting across the water, the sky pale and flat. Val showed up with her hands shoved in her coat pockets, hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked like someone who'd been awake too long. I don't expect forgiveness, she said, before I could even ask why she wanted to talk. From you or from Claire? I waited. Val's breath came out in a shaky cloud. I hated that she had something real, she said. I hated that she cared about something that much. And I hated that you believed in her. I stared at her. Why? Val laughed softly, bitter. Because it made me feel empty, she admitted. Like I was just floating from party to party, person to person. And none of it meant anything. The honesty surprised me. It didn't erase what she'd done, but it explained the hunger under it. Val looked at me. Caitlin knew exactly how to use that, she said. She knew what to say to make me feel like I was finally on the inside of something. Even if it meant hurting Claire, I said. Val nodded, eyes wet. Yes. The river moved beside us, indifferent and steady. I'm telling you this, Val said, because there's one more thing. My stomach tightened again. What? Val swallowed hard. Caitlin didn't just fake screenshots, she said. She also planned to blame you. My blood ran cold. How? Val's voice was quiet. She told me if things went wrong, if Claire pushed back, she'd say you were the one spreading rumors. That you were jealous. That you were trying to sabotage Claire's show because you secretly wanted attention. My hands went numb. It was so calculated, it made my skin crawl. She said you were useful, Val added, disgust creeping into her voice. Because you're nice. People believe nice people. I stared out at the water, trying to process the fact that my reputation had been a backup plan for someone else's cruelty. Val's voice cracked. I'm sorry. I looked at her. Tell Claire, I said. Val nodded. I will. And she did. Claire told me later, in a quiet phone call late at night, that Val had come clean. Claire didn't forgive her. Not fully. Not yet. But she listened. And that, in itself, was mercy. Caitlin tried one last move a week after the show ended. She showed up at a small bar where a few of us were gathered. People loosely connected to the gallery crowd. She walked in like she belonged, like nothing had happened. And for a moment, the room went tense, like a muscle tightening. She approached our table, eyes fixed on me. We need to talk, she said. I didn't stand. I didn't flinch. No, I said calmly. Caitlin's smile twitched. Really? After everything, you're going to pretend you're above this? I'm not above it, I said. I'm done with it. Her eyes narrowed. Claire turned you into her little soldier. That old attempt to shame me into silence, to make loyalty sound pathetic. She didn't turn me into anything, I said. You tried to hurt someone in public. You lied. You dragged people into it. And when it didn't work, you tried to make yourself the victim. It's over. Caitlin's cheeks flushed. You think you're some moral authority now. I'm just someone who saw what you did, I said. And I'm not going to pretend it's normal. The table was silent. People watched her now, with something close to disgust. Caitlin felt it. You could see the moment she realized her charm wasn't going to rescue her. She leaned in, voice low, venomous. You'll regret humiliating me. I held her gaze. You humiliated yourself. For a second, her eyes glittered with tears, real or strategic. I couldn't tell. Then she snapped her head back, laughed too loudly, and walked out, leaving the door swinging behind her. The room stayed quiet for a beat. Then someone exhaled. And that was it. Not a dramatic downfall, just a door closing, and people deciding they weren't going to chase her anymore. Months later, Claire's career didn't magically become perfect. She still struggled. She still had days where she doubted herself, days where she stared at a blank canvas and felt nothing but fear. But she kept working. She kept showing up, and she learned something that night that no amount of praise could have taught her, that her voice could hold under pressure. As for me, I learned something too. I learned how easy it is to stay quiet when something feels messy, how tempting it is to wait for proof while someone else gets hurt in real time. I learned that being not involved is sometimes just another way of choosing a side. And I learned that trust isn't a soft thing. It's a decision you make over and over, especially when it costs you something. So if you're listening to this and there's a name popping into your head, someone who smiles while they poison the room, pay attention. Not because everyone is dangerous, but because the right people don't need sabotage to feel powerful. Claire once told me, weeks after the show, that she didn't want to be known as the girl who got attacked at her first exhibit. She wanted to be known as the artist who didn't leave. And that's how I'll remember her. If you've ever been in a room where the energy shifted and you realized someone was trying to make you the punchline, tell your story in the comments. Was it a friend, a coworker, a family member? And what did you do when you saw their mask slip? You've been listening to Plot Twist Revolutions. If this story hit something real, tap like, subscribe, and stick around. Because there are more turns ahead, and you deserve to hear them before they happen to you.